and welcome back to another episode of the Manifesting Muslimah Ramadan series, Aligning with Allah. Sister, my sister in faith, sister from another mister, sister act 1 and 2, sister, I need you to stop micromanaging Allah. If you want to have a good relationship with Allah, if you want to connect with Allah, you need to stop micromanaging Allah. There's a big difference between planning and taking action and so on, and then also taking it to the next step where we are now trying to predict or force an outcome to happen. You can take action. You can, make effort as a part of your worship, and then you can make that effort and take that action from a place where it now is forced. You're trying to force an outcome. The surrender is gone. There is no surrendering. You are literally saying, yeah, I get that this is Allah's plan perhaps, or maybe, but also I want it so much, and I need to show Allah that I want it so much that I have to insist upon it. It must be simply because I have chosen it, so I shall make the plan and it shall happen. But that's not how we create a relationship with Allah. And also that's not how we create anything in this dunya, just FYI. But that's definitely not how we create a good relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is not the way that we curate an intimate, trusting connection with the creator of creation. It doesn't happen that way. When we're micromanaging, i.e. when we're trying to force an outcome, when we are trying to predict what has to happen if we do X, Y, and Z, when we are over planning, we are basically allowing the fear of not having the thing to lead. We are allowing the fear inside, the hesitation, the doubt of maybe this won't come, to take over our tawakkul. And now that fear is making us do things that perhaps is not even necessary at all, and in fact could be holding us back. Again, because we're not leading with love and trust and faith, we are now leading with fear, doubt, hesitation, stress, anxiety, worry. The outcome that we want rather than the one that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may want for us, that is eternally better for us. This happens so often, and I see it time and time again, and I'm sure I've done it many times as well. And it is sadly one of those things that we have a difficult time seeing when we're doing for ourselves. So we have a difficult time recognizing when we're doing it ourselves. We might be able to see it when others are doing it, but when we're doing it for ourselves, it's like, oh, no, I'm just taking action. No, because there's an element of denial. There's an element of denial because, again, we live in the theory of I trust Allah. But if we don't live in the tawakkul, then what is that knowledge? What is that theory? It doesn't mean anything, right? And then we become little micromanagers. We're running around like little Karens. I want to speak to the manager because I followed this plan and these steps and I planned it precisely, but the outcome hasn't shown up. And you know what this does, my love? Do you know what this does in the long term? Maybe sometimes even in the short term, depending on how patient of a person you are. And let's be real, many of us are not very patient to begin with. It creates resentment. It creates anger and frustration. It creates hopelessness. It creates distrust, wounded trust. And you know where that is going to be directed? Towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Astaghfirullah, right? It hurts even to say, but you know what hurts even more? When we realize we've been doing that. And we realize that we could have had a completely different relationship with our actions, with Allah, everything from the get-go, if we took a step back and allowed ourselves to breathe. Now, you might be thinking, but Zara, just yesterday you told us about effort and how effort is a part of our worship and we should be doing these things and we shouldn't just stand still, you tie your camel and all of that stuff. Yes, alhamdulillah, but you take effort in trust, you take effort and surrender. You can plan to a certain extent. There's nothing wrong with planning, plan for a retirement, save up money and all of those things, but you should never live in that future. You plan with a sense of tawakkul. You focus on the next step in faith rather than the entire future as a predicted outcome that it has to happen. You live in the present moment when you're taking these steps, even when you're planning for the future, because tawakkul doesn't live in the future. Tawakkul lives in the present moment. So when you're micromanaging, that is you saying, I'm going to try and extend my tawakkul to the future and say, I'm going to be so strategic with my tawakkul that I'm going to micromanage how this is going to happen. And I'm going to do that by doing more and planning more and trying to force the outcome to happen, even when it feels like it is not happening. And in turn, and this is how we know we're trying to force an outcome, when we start getting frustrated that it hasn't happened. When we start getting irritated with the people around us for not doing what we want them to do because that would follow our plan. When we start getting angry and annoyed with Allah because how many more days do I have to make the same dua? Ya Rabb, why do I have to sit down here again? How many times have I cried to you and you still haven't served up the thing that I've been asking you for? Let's be real, sister. We've probably all been there once or twice in our life. Sometimes some of us maybe more. And may Allah guide us to the right path and move us away from that. But it's the truth. It's the truth that many of us find ourselves there. And we find ourselves there because we're trying to micromanage. Because we're living in a world that requires some sense of logic and strategy in order for it to make sense. But the problem is that we can't take that with us into our relationship with Allah, because Allah doesn't operate within those parameters. Allah operates somewhere outside of logic and strategy. He operates outside of anything that we even know to be true or even exist. And so when we operate within these rules and restrictions that we think we have to live by in this dunya, and we bring it to the one who exists outside of these parameters, and we expect a certain outcome but don't get it, we get disappointed. We get hurt, we get annoyed, we get frustrated, we get angry. And as hard as it is sometimes to admit, that anger and that frustration and annoyance and disappointment, that is directed to a specific place, and that place is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Astaghfirullah, may Allah protect us all from it. But it happens, and it's only human. When we are trying to control an outcome, we're not doing it because we want to be Muslim Karens. We're not doing it because we want to breathe down Allah's necks. We're not trying to do it because we're trying to be annoying. We're doing it because this sense of wanting to control often comes from trust that has been wounded before, a trust that feels like it has been disappointed before, a trust that feels like it's been broken before. And that usually comes because our expectations or our understandings of what to expect hasn't aligned with what is the reality, what is true. So we're not just over planning and micromanaging and trying to control the outcome because we're thinking, oh, how can I be strategic about this thing? We're doing it because we're scared of the disappointment of what if it doesn't happen? And that disappointment comes when we don't trust fully in Allah's plan, when we don't trust fully in what Allah has promised us, when we don't trust fully in Allah wanting the best for us and Allah knowing what is best for us, when we think we know better than Allah, astaghfirullah. When we think, but this is the thing that I really want, and if Allah doesn't give it to me, nothing else will make me happy. So why would Allah want to take it away from me? Because Allah knows better than you. That's why. But you see how micromanaging, trying to control the outcome, planning and being too strategic, and with trying to rule everything that you do with an iron fist, and it has to come to this way and it has to be done this way, is actually not a part of effort that is ibadah. It is effort to control, to avoid disappointment. It's because the trust is not there. It is because you believe that Allah doesn't know what you know, that Allah doesn't know better than you. Astaghfirullah. It's hard to say, isn't it? It may be even hard to hear, you know. It might be hard for you also at some point, maybe to have to admit that that is exactly what you're doing. And listen, it doesn't make you a bad Muslim. Let me just come right out and say that, sister. It doesn't make you a bad Muslim. It doesn't make you a faulty Muslim. It just means that perhaps there's something there for you to work on. It just means that there's some control that you still have to relinquish in order to surrender fully. It just means that you need to be more concerned with your relationship with Allah than the outcome of whatever it is that you're doing. You need to divorce dunya and marry Allah. I don't know how else to say that. You need to divorce yourself a little bit more from the outcome of what is happening in this dunya, and trust that if it happens in this dunya, then it is for the best of you. If it doesn't, it is for the best of you. That is the relationship with Allah. That is where that comes in. That trust with Allah. If you're micromanaging everything, if you are so married to the outcome that you have in mind, the ideas that you have in mind, then maybe, my darling, it's time for you to sit back and start questioning, why am I trying to micromanage this right now? Why am I trying to control the outcome right now? Where is it coming from? And what can I do to start letting that go? And usually it starts becoming easier, and it starts becoming easier for us to let go, the more we can build on that trust in Allah and back up our knowledge around Allah's Allah's promise to us, who Allah is, the power of dua, the power of His plan, the power of qadr, all of these things. And when we start understanding all of these things and we have a greater understanding of it, it becomes easier for us to start letting go and surrendering more and more and more. If you want to stop micromanaging and you need these kinds of little nuggets to fall back on again and again of who Allah is and what promises He's made to us, my darling, this is when, again, I say to you, as I've said already before, you need to start reading your Quran in a language you understand, because Allah already says it. And so it's easy for us to feel confident in relinquishing our perceived control, because we never have control, but our perceived control, because we know who we're relinquishing it to. So it feels safe again. It's safe for us to trust, even if in the past other people have wounded that trust in us. My darling, Allah doesn't need you to micromanage. He just needs you to take effort and trust. All right, my darling, this is where I'm going to end this episode. I will see you, inshallah, in tomorrow's episode. But until then, my darling friend, please don't forget to live in love.